forever. Excuse me, I have got the yawns. That's another
better
thing.
than
I'm
the
just
runs.
tired.
Hello, and welcome to Middleish, the podcast about moderation and all things. I am Michael Gray.
And I am Erin Green.
How are you doing, Aaron Green?
Not bad.
Not bad.
Not bad at all.
I'm not bad.
I don't want to say I'm not good either, but I'm just kind of in the middle. I'm middle-ish today. I'm kind of in that area where
Is that a paid sponsorship?
Yeah, I know.
Are we paying you for this?
I know. Sorry for the blatant endorsement, you guys, of Middleish, but yeah, I'm sort of in that spot where I've got enough things going on that I feel motivated and like on top of it. But if anything else comes on my plate, I might be tipping the scales into the realm of needing a vacation. Like today. So
Okay.
which also means like shutting down. So yeah, I'm in that middle where things
So
are
you're in the
rolling.
middle, but at any moment you might have to run away from everything.
Not
I don't
quite
know
on
if
that
that's
edge.
in the middle.
I guess I'm not quite on that edge, but it feels like the things that have come at me are not just little things, they're big things. And so the scales could tip quite quickly.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Yeah.
How are you?
Not bad. No, I'm good. I'm good. Yeah. It's been a really, really busy week, but it's been just good, kind of busy. And I did have this realization though, that Lila starts school in like 3 weeks. And I'm not ready for that.
What grade is she going to be in?
She'd be a 5th grader.
What?
Yeah.
That's so wild.
It's insane. I don't know. It just feels like, when school starts, like everything goes by so much faster.
Yeah.
And you just see her so much less. I just don't like it. I like summer when she's here more.
Oh.
But yeah. So, and then it's 5th grade. Like the school year's going to fly by and then she's going to be heading to middle school and Sophie will be going into kindergarten. And it's like,
oh my gosh.
I am
You're like,
not
slow
ready
down.
for this at all.
I remember 5th grade was kind of when school got really serious.
Yeah.
Like we're not just in 3rd and 4th grade anymore, people. We're in 5th grade now. Like there's some real homework to do and we're learning history and we're like, it just kind of, I remember for me having a little more difficulty in 4th, 5th, and 6th grade with just
got more serious.
Yeah.
It's a shift. Yeah. It's like prepping you for middle school because then like that's a real change.
It's well, we didn't have middle school where I'm from.
Did you have junior high?
We did. We called it junior high, but it's all in the same school. Like I don't think people realize my little tiny school is, we had less than 70 people in the entire school.
Oh.
When I was
so
going
it was like
to school.
1st through senior year all in one place?
So we have, like the campus is all in one place and the school, like the elementary school is separate from like 7th grade through 12th, but they're on the same, like they're literally just around the corner walkway from each other. So they're next to each other, all on the same campus. We share the same gym and band room and shop and common areas and assemblies, like all of it. We all share it.
Wow.
K through 12. So
wild.
Yeah, it's wild. It's really crazy. People don't realize I had 15 people in my graduating high school class. That's 15, not 50, 15. And 7 of us started kindergarten together and then graduated together. So
that's crazy.
Knew each other all the way through. Our parents went to school together. Our grandparents went to school together. Like I have one of those really unique upbringings where it was like that small town life. And my brothers had the same teachers. So that whole, 5th grade, things get serious kind of thing. Oh yeah. My brother's like, well, Mrs. Roberts, she's not going to accept late work. So you better get blah, blah, blah. Like, so
That's awesome.
I had my brothers kind of giving me the lowdown on the teachers as I was making my way through school. So
Wild.
I know.
So hey, let's do this real quick.
Hmm?
Since we're doing this at the beginning, remember, okay, everybody listening, that you are a huge asset to us in helping spread the word about Middleish, right? And so if you can share this episode with someone, if you can pause for a minute, rate and review, if you can do any of that stuff just to help get the word out, we would really appreciate that.
Tag us on social media,
Yeah.
share something on social media about how much you
Post on your
love us.
wall. Yep. Yeah. Especially me, or Aaron, either one, both is
I
fine,
mean,
but if you have
I
to pick
guess
one,
play favorites if you really want to go there. We know who will win.
I think we do. We may not have the same person in mind here. There may be a little cognitive dissonance between us here.
Yeah.
But also, if you would like to sponsor Middleish, you can do that in a couple ways. You can do listener support, which there's a link at below all of our episodes for I think it's $4.99 a month. You can help sponsor support Middleish and what we're doing here. Or we're also looking for just more regular sponsors. Like if you're a business or have a service or something like that you feel like would be a good fit with what we're doing here, we're looking for sponsors for the show too. So you can shoot us a message on social media or email us at middleish at gmail.com and let us know you're interested. And we'd love to talk with you about that.
Yes. And thank you to
Yeah.
everybody else who has already
Mhm.
supported the podcast. And
Very much.
we have a few supporters that are monthly, and we love you guys. Thank you so
Mhm.
much because, we're not looking to get rich off this, but it is kind of nice to have a little, again, we've said this 1,000 times how we want to grow and
Mhm.
get some merch and do some fun things with our audience. So this is a way to do it. So
Mhm. Yeah.
baby steps, but we're getting there.
Yep. That's how we get places.
And I do have something to follow up with from our last episode where we
Okay.
talked about sugar toxicity. So
Mhm.
I had posted on Instagram a little behind the scenes thing where we were getting ready to record that show, and our show notes basically said
Mhm.
like, is sugar toxic? No, it's not. End of podcast in all bold letters. And one of my Instagram friends commented, well, if you have diabetes, it could be. And I was like, oh, touche. And I'm kind of surprised that we didn't even talk about that because you, my friend, have diabetes.
Mhm.
So, just to maybe clarify some of that whole episode where we talk about, my goodness, sugar is not toxic. Your body knows what to do with it. Yes, there are instances and there are metabolic disorders and there are medical conditions that could make a food substance toxic in
Mhm.
some form or another, or in, again, the dose makes the poison. We talked about this. And depending on what kinds of medical conditions you might have, sure, toxic, sugar could be toxic. So just wanted to clarify and kind of
Right.
share that little exchange because I was like, okay, you're right. Technically, it could be. Anything could be. We talked about that in the episode. Water
Yep.
could be.
Yep.
So
And it would
anyway,
still, again, depend on the dosage because it's not like
mhm,
diabetics never eat sugar ever in their lives. And if they do, they're dead. You know what I
right,
mean? Yeah. So
right.
it's a good point though. And I think that's a good point to make with most things we say. Like we have to speak in pretty broad terms, right? So we tend to speak fairly generally because that's how conversations about this kind of stuff goes. But they're often, if you ever find us saying something, you're like, well, yeah, but not this, or I have
Yeah.
okay, sure. There are always instances, and it's important to keep those in mind. It's important for us to keep them in mind, and it's important for you to keep them in mind when you're listening that we have to speak in broad terms to a degree. And there are often cases where what we're saying won't apply to a specific situation. So I think that's just a good thing to keep in mind that we're not
Yeah.
discounting, your condition or your situation or anything like that. But we are, I mean, if we tried to talk to every specific situation, it would be a boring, long show.
Well,
But it's good to keep in mind.
and this just reinforces the whole idea that health and fitness and nutrition is full of nuance. I mean, there's all kinds of
Oh, it
different,
is. Yeah.
and we're all human beings with a different set of circumstances and biology and genetics and all kinds of stuff. So anyway,
All right. This is totally random,
there's
but
that.
when you were a kid, just because you just said this, did you ever think that human beings was like beans as opposed to beans? Did you ever think that? Like I always thought like
Beans?
human beings.
Like pinto beans?
Yeah, like beans. Like when you were little.
No.
No, you never
Nope.
heard that as a kid and thought like
No.
beans. All right, beans.
No. I
Huh.
never. No. That sounds like the situation where somebody has a completely different song lyric that they're singing for like years, and then they learn the real lyrics and they're like, oh, that makes
True,
more
but
sense.
I think people don't say human beings. They say human beings, right? Like most people say
Beans.
beans. They don't say beans.
Beans. I think I
Now
say
you're
it
going to be
like,
thinking about it all day long.
yeah, now I'm like really ruminating on
Beans.
this. I think that I say it like beings, being like, the search engine Bing,
Bings.
Bing. I think
Yeah.
I say it that way. I don't say
Bings.
beings. Oh man, deep thoughts with Michael Gray.
Yeah. Well, all right. I've got us off track once. Probably got a couple
Good
more in me
job.
if
Yeah.
history proves to be accurate.
Whenever you say I'm gonna go off track or this is random, I'm like, all right, we'll roll with it.
Here we
We've been
go.
here before.
Yeah,
Been here
we're going to be
before.
here again. All right. Well, shall we dive in?
Yeah, I like today's
Do
topic. I think this is gonna be a fun one.
So we
And I'm kind
are.
of
Oh,
shocked we haven't talked about this yet. And when you mentioned that, I was like,
mhm.
what? We really haven't, but
Well, I think the reason we haven't talked about today's topic, like as an episode, is because we've done it like just scattered through, through so much that
yeah.
there was another episode we did recently that we talked about that. There was something where like, I'm surprised. It kind of felt like we'd done this because we've kind of just scattered throughout, the last year plus. We've talked about elements of it so much, but we've never done like a real focused episode
Yeah.
on this topic. So
On Fad Diets.
Fad Diets. Yeah. There we go.
I like how you always sing or repeat our our episode topic. Good job.
I guess
Michael
Yeah.
brings the entertainment.
He does something.
So I have to ask you, have you ever tried a fad diet or kind of gotten hooked?
Yep.
Maybe in your younger years?
Yeah. So let's see. There's been, I guess, two kind of major times. There's probably been some other like where I haven't really done it as much, but two major times where I would say like I really tried to diet. And one of them was my freshman or sophomore year in college. And what I did, I don't even know where I got this idea, but for some reason I thought that avoiding any kind of meat would be healthy for me. And so I was avoiding meat, and I would make like these like veggie bagel sandwiches all the time. Like
That doesn't sound too bad.
it was like a bagel with like, I don't know, cucumbers and tomatoes and random stuff, and then just like covered in ranch dressing.
Oh, all right.
Yeah.
That's
So that's what I eat in the cafeteria a lot. I don't know that I did that for more than, I don't know, a few months. And then after I graduated college, so this would be like the summer of 2002, I did into the fall. I probably did this for, I don't know, maybe 5 or 6 months. I did like, it was sort of a low fat, low carb blend, which doesn't make sense because
you just eat, like what do you just eat like cucumbers with fat-free mayo and tuna or something like that?
Well, no, because I would eat like high fat stuff when I was eating low carb stuff.
When it's suited.
Well, I didn't really understand, right? Like what was what. So I would eat a lot of low fat hot dogs and
You told me that. Yeah, you
pepperoni
said
and
this
cheese and like
God.
those single serving Campbell's tomato soups.
Yeah.
Like that's kind of what I lived off of, right? Because I just thought like
sodium and nitrates. Good job.
yeah, carbs are bad and fat's bad. So I don't know, just try to avoid what I can and yeah. And it worked. It was
Man.
terrible and miserable. And I didn't feel super great. I mean, I lost the weight I wanted to
Yeah.
lose, but it wasn't any kind of healthy way or for any
Yeah.
healthy reason. But how about you?
Yeah, I remember I remember being aware of the low fat thing when I
Mhm.
was kind of growing up and getting into college, but not in the sense that like I went hardcore into the whole Snackwells generation, which, I'm not
Right.
trying to like rag on that particular brand, but that is probably the most notorious food product that came out of the low fat craze was something like Snackwells. Like, oh, it's a fat free or low fat cookie. So you can eat
Right.
10 of them instead of just two or three. And that's what happened with people as they decided, this to get on this bandwagon of like, oh, I can just eat more. That's a fabulous idea. That's not the point.
Right.
So I did get into like, trying to adjust recipes that were lower fat and lighter recipes. And um, I would say with marginal success. I have found some recipes that I've adjusted or some cookbooks that I really like. Ellie Krieger she's a dietitian and a chef, and she has a cookbook called Comfort Food Fix.
Mhm.
And it has like all the traditional comfort foods in it that are just, they include more herbs and spices and more vegetables to kind of fill them out, but without losing the flavor and that filling nature. So anyway, long way
Right.
of saying that I kind of went through that phase of like the low fat thing and like adjusting recipes accordingly. And then realized that like, man, fat is really important for flavor and satiety and mouthfeel and
Mhm.
all kinds of
Lots of things.
benefits
Yeah.
in food. And so that was one. And then when I was in college, and again, this is all before I studied nutrition or really got into
Yeah.
that area
Same
anyway.
here.
My brother had done the whole low carb Atkins thing, and I don't remember if he had gotten his hands on a book or if somebody had like printed something off and given it to him, and he tried it. And of course he's like, oh yeah, I'm so lean. I can eat cheese and deli meats and hard boiled eggs. That was like the thing.
Mhm.
Like you get hungry, you just reach for some meat and cheese. And I did that uh not with any strict adherence for like a summer, but I would really try and shift like my snacking over to the low carb kind of thing.
Right.
And I just remember feeling unsatisfied. Like really just feeling like, is this working? Like, I didn't notice that my weight changed really or anything, probably because I didn't, do it with any kind of strict adherence. But I also just remember feeling unsatisfied. And then I,
Right.
I actually got into dietetics and exercise physiology and sports science and all of that the next semester in college and started learning
Okay.
about all of this stuff and how it made sense. And I was like, oh,
Yeah.
that's why the fad diet thing just, yeah,
Yeah.
didn't work for me.
That's a good point that it was one of those things that I think I realized, but I didn't realize I realized until you just said it. Like it just felt kind of empty. And I was like, yeah, that is a feeling I had.
Like something's
Like
missing.
there's
Yeah.
no joy here,
Yeah.
like
Yeah. Yeah.
in preparing food and eating food. I mean, even though like I like cheese, I like pepperoni, like I like that stuff. But when it's like this is your option, it's just like
Right.
I don't like I'm not happy and I'm not
Mm-hmm.
enjoying this. And it is solely a means to an end. Right. And
Mm-hmm.
I think that is sort of the overarching undercurrent, whatever
Mm-hmm.
theme to fad diets is
Mm-hmm.
they are only a means to an end. They are not about establishing healthy behaviors and habits and routines. They're not about taking care of you or nurturing you or worrying about your mental or emotional health at all. Like screw that stuff. Just get smaller, right? And they're just about losing weight. They're not even really about an end goal of being healthier necessarily. They're
Yeah.
just they're just a means to an end. And I think that's why they're so hollow, you
Mm-hmm.
know?
And something hollow is a really good word for it. I think when a diet in general puts constraints on what food choices you
Mm-hmm.
have and what times you can eat and what's right or wrong.
Right.
Some people thrive with those kinds of boundaries for a period of time.
Mm-hmm.
And some people swear that they need those kinds of boundaries in order to eat well or not go off the rails. And, again, we just talked about there's a special set of circumstances for everybody. I think that this is one of those areas that some people need a little more structure to their, lifestyle and eating patterns than others. Generally speaking, though, what happens when we've talked about this with what happens with food restriction, we've talked about it in various episodes, when you tell yourself you can't have a certain food or that a certain food is bad or off limits. And like you just said, these are my options. Like I've been relegated to just this is the right way to do it. It does take away that joy of food, the satisfaction of eating a variety, just the calming effect of knowing that you can go into any food situation and navigate it with ease, versus how many people do you know have like anxiety because they're like, I can't go to this party because it's not going to have the options that I need.
Like, do I bring my own food to the party? Do I eat beforehand?
Totally.
How do I do this? It's like, you go to the party. Like,
yeah.
Come on, people. Like, it's just life.
Yeah. So
what's going on?
Fad diets, I think, well, you have a definition for us. I mean, diet is obviously in the name, and so we can automatically sort of cringe at it a little bit, but
so I have this is from the Cleveland Clinic. I have a kind of a brief definition, and then just some bullet points on how to spot a fad diet, which, well, I'll get into this in a second. So their definition is that a fad diet is a plan sold as the best and fastest approach to losing weight, right? So it goes on, some of these diets involve eliminating foods that contain necessary nutrients. They can claim particular hormones are to blame for weight gain, suggest that food can change body chemistry. Often these diets aren't well researched, or the research is faulty. But I think that first sentence is kind of key. They're sold as the best and fastest approach to losing weight. To me, that's, the other stuff is good, but that's like, there you go. If someone sells something as this is the way for you, right? I know nothing about you, but I know what's best for you. And give me your money, and then I'll tell you.
Right. And it's a miracle. Like it's so fast.
Oh my God, it's gonna happen so fast.
This weight came on overnight, and so naturally it'll come off overnight too. Is that the way it works? Like, let's just use some logic,
You know how you're a candle? Like it's gonna melt off. That just sounds like a mess, first of all.
Oh God.
So you want me to do the how to spot them real quick, or did you have something?
Sure.
Okay.
No, I had a thought. It'll come back to me.
You sure? You can go ahead.
Yeah, it was probably on the vein of ranting about the whole false promises and claims. I think that's another thing. If you're reading about a diet plan or approach that it's laden with, and this might even be in your bullet list, laden with testimonials and personal achievements, before and afters, all of these very extreme, profound results, that should be a red flag that maybe you need to dive into some of the actual research and evidence of looking at like a wide variety of people who have tried this eating plan, and what are the long-term kinds of effects of this eating plan. Is it a long-term, plan that you could engage in? Is it nutritionally sound? Anyway, you go with your bullet list, and we'll discuss.
But I want to make a point on that real quick, because that's a good point about before and after pictures. And we may have brought this up before, is that an after picture is not, there's after the after, right? There's the rest of your life. And an after isn't like a set place where people just exist. It's a moment in time, right? And like, we don't just stay somewhere. And so I think it's always interesting to think about the fact of like, well, what about after this? What about a month after the after picture, or 6 months, or a year, right? Like, before and after pictures, I can have some benefit. I think I really don't even do them anymore, because I kind of don't like the negative side of them, but they can be very compelling and powerful, because like, whoa, look where they got to. And it's like, great, I don't really care where someone got to. I care where someone stays. Like, this is what's important. Where are you
Yeah.
able to stay and maintain? So just a
I
point I wanted
agree.
to
And
make
I,
there.
I
Yeah.
think one last thought on before and after pictures. I think it's important for people to take pride in their effort, hard work, consistency, all of the things that we talk about on here to help people be healthier people. If the before and after is a really motivating thing for someone to do for themselves, or,
Mm-hmm.
it's something they want to, share with people because they're so proud of what they have
Mm-hmm.
done. Um, I am not going to rag on that at all,
Nope, not at all.
but I really like your distinction of, it doesn't just stop now. Like you
Mm-hmm.
took this moment in time, you have this snapshot. Yes, the comparison is profound and it's probably something you're super proud of. And it's probably very compelling for somebody to see that.
Mm-hmm.
Yet, what happens? And just back to fad diets, this is a common question I'll ask people if they're like, oh, I want to try this thing, intermittent fasting, or I want to try the paleo diet or whatever. And I'll say, okay, how long do you see yourself doing this? And is this something you can picture for your lifetime? Like, is this something you really think? And asking those questions, like with that duration, really gets to what you're saying, the beyond,
Mm-hmm.
the after kind
Right.
of thing.
Right.
What do you see for yourself for the long term? And we talk
Yeah.
about this a lot, like getting you to kind of see through, see past that immediacy into the
Yeah.
long term.
Because I mean, that's the reality, right? Like, if any changes you want to make, you better be able to do them for the rest of your life, or why are you doing them?
Mm-hmm.
And it's
Or
like,
at least for the foreseeable future, because your life changes. Like people have
sure,
kids, they have different jobs, they move around the country, whatever, you
sure.
know
But I would
so
say that that's not the mindset people approach fad diets with. It's,
right.
this is my
Yeah.
lifestyle change. Like, I'm
Right.
keto now, so I don't eat carbs again. Like, really, you're 30 years old. You're not going to eat a carb for 55 years.
Right.
Is this
Right.
really what you're going to do?
Well, but when I'm out of ketosis, then
Yeah.
I'll eat a piece of cake on my son's birthday, but then I'm
Yeah.
going to go back into ketosis
Mhm.
tomorrow,
Yeah,
that
sure
kind
you
of
are,
thing.
buddy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right.
All right. So again, this is from the Cleveland Clinic. They just have some ideas, and I'll say this. So these are just some ways to spot a fad diet. I don't think that if a eating plan or something has some of these, that it necessarily means it's a fad diet. But these are some good ways to good things to look out for. So recommendations that promise a quick fix, claims that sound too good to be true, right? Like that
Mm-hmm.
miracle cure. Simplistic conclusions drawn from a complex study all the time. Recommendations based on a single study. Dramatic statements that are refuted by reputable scientific organizations. List of quote unquote good and quote unquote bad foods, like demonization of food or given food
Mm-hmm.
morality. Recommendations made to help sell a book or a product all the time. I'm looking at you, doctors. Recommendations based on studies published without peer review. Recommendations from studies that ignore differences among individuals or groups. Elimination of one or more of the 5 food groups, like fruits, vegetables, grains, proteins, foods, and dairy, or subgroups, grains, dairy, fruit,
Mm-hmm.
it says, and then diets that have, like Aaron said, testimonials. So those are just some
Yep.
things to look out for. Yeah. And like I said, if someone is promoting something and has testimonials, that doesn't mean it's a bad thing. But I think it's important to look at what are they claiming, what are the testimonials saying, that kind of stuff.
Yep.
So
Yep. And I think the other thing to kind of recognize when you're looking at, because a lot of the times these things come to you in social media, or maybe you still read magazines, maybe you're that kind of person, you see ads for these
were you
kinds
going
of
to say
things.
antiquated,
I was
old
not
fashioned?
actually, but you're that kind of person. You liked having the paper version of whatever you're reading instead of scrolling with your thumb or finger.
You're one of
That's what I
those.
meant.
That's what she's
Those
saying.
people. So this stuff comes to you, in these various formats. Or maybe like a friend, you see a friend you haven't seen for a while, and you notice that they look different, they've lost weight, whatever, and oh yeah, I did this thing, I started doing this thing, so there's a testimonial. These kinds of messages hit on some sort of emotion. Take a moment just to, I love this, I actually saw this on Instagram last week. Ask yourself, who profits from that emotion? Like what I'm feeling right now or what I'm thinking, who profits from this? How is this impacting my behaviors, my thoughts, my feelings, like what I'm going to buy or do next? Really just take a moment to kind of think about that. And I think that also will put some of like your whole bulleted list that you just went through, it'll put some of that in perspective so that you can actually see like, oh, does this feel like it's a very sound scientific kind of, thing? Does it seem nutritionally adequate? Does it seem like it would be something I can do for the long term?
Right.
Do a little examination there.
Yeah. Because I mean, and again, it's important to, I think, to spend time with people who are influencing you in these ways to kind of know what they're about. Because the reality is some people will have books or products and they will say things on social media that to promote them. And this isn't a inherently bad thing, right? But like Aaron said, like where's the real profit here? Like if there's an exchange of money and then I get a desired result that is sustainable, cool. This is good. It's profit on both sides, right? But if it's only one direction, or if it seems like it might be, this is a good time to, be a little skeptical.
Like if you have to keep buying the meal plan or the supplement or the program or whatever it is, just pay attention to those things. There's a reason why fad diets are fads. I mean, fad in itself means a short-lived trend, something that's really hot and then it just goes the way of the dodo. Why do you think we have, and Michael and I'll go into some of the historical fad diets. There is some wild shit out there, you guys.
Wild shit.
That we have been through already. Why do you think these fads come and go? Because they don't have the staying power, because they're not good for your health, because they don't have any kind of science or research to support them. So that's why these kinds of things, like they're all about profitability, hooking people, promising people, the world, and really only truly working for a very, very small subset of the population. And I'm looking at you, Atkins. I know I almost threw up in my mouth saying that.
You did not want to say that word, did you? Keto. Just vomit through all of them.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to like wipe off my mic.
Just do it.
I know, just spew them all out real quick.
It's a vomit episode.
Atkins, keto, paleo, all of these different intermittent fasting. I'm not saying that those diets don't work for anybody, because I know people that truly believe and adhere to that kind of eating plan, whatever they've chosen. But it's a very small number of people, very, very small. And I would even say it's not truly a consistent adherence to that eating pattern. There's some wiggle room, there's some adjustment, there's some being on or off. That's another thing. Consider if you have to be on or off, if you have to give yourself some time to like relax the rules or break the rules, or you have to have a cheat day or on vacation, just pay attention to what you're telling yourself about that eating pattern. That's pretty indicative that maybe it's too restrictive and that you need to loosen the reins and this isn't the right plan for you.
Yeah. Like I think about like a test. Like if you have to cheat on a test, it's because the test is too hard for you.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? Like,
or you yeah.
Like it's too much. So if it's too much, then maybe we should be doing something different.
Yeah.
Yeah. So do you want to look at some of these through the through the years?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
Yes, I do.
I got one here.
I want to say one more thing. I have the Sports Dietitians of Australia pulled up here to talk about fad diets. And they say a fad diet, also called a popular diet or a diet cult, is a diet that makes promises of weight loss or other health advantages without being backed by solid science. So I love that diet cult because we've talked about this a little bit before too, how people feel the need to label their dietary pattern in such a way that all of a sudden you belong to this group of people. Oh, I'm paleo. Oh, I'm plant-based. Oh, I'm, I do intermittent fasting, or I'm keto. All of a sudden you're part of this group of people that then has this like-minded approach, and you get a little bit of that like self-righteous sort of thing, like, oh, I eat this way, and so all of a sudden I'm kind of better than the masses because I'm doing this special dietary pattern. So that term diet cult, I think, is a really powerful one too when talking about fad diets.
In fact, that's a bullet point that I think should be on there is if people are dogmatic about it, right? Like if it's got to be right, if this way has to be right and it has to be the way for everyone, that's a real good indicator. Or if people identify as this diet, right? Like I do. People often with fad diets like adopt that as their identity, right? At least in some way. So I think those would be some other good bullet points on there to be wary of. All right.
So what you got?
Let's do this one. Let's do Fletcherism first because I like this one.
You told me that one before we started recording, and I was like, what?
Yeah. So this was in the early 1900s. Okay. Horace Fletcher, an American entrepreneur, so naturally someone who should be telling people how to eat. He gained the nickname, I'm going to say this clearly so there's no mistake on what I'm saying. He gained the nickname the Great Masticator. Okay, masticator.
Good enunciation there.
A C, not a B. Okay, masticator. He wasn't like the weird guy in the park. I mean, maybe he was. I don't know. That's not what he was known for. Okay. Masticator.
Using a different part of his body.
So his diet was kind of nicknamed chew and spit because it involved eating as much as you liked, but each mouthful. I've seen different things. Some say had to be chewed like 30 sometimes, some say 100 times. But the idea that you would chew your food, you would get the nutrients out of it in the liquid, and then you would spit the solid out, and you couldn't gain weight because the food part was undigested and you were just getting the nutrients and stuff. So,
and I would like to remind Mr. Fletcher masticator that mastication is part of the digestive process. So that bizarre claim that like you're not getting digested food or something. Yeah. I mean, sure, if you spit food out, like what does he think is the point of chewing up food and spitting it out?
Can you imagine how hungry you'd be?
Like, well, and can you imagine how much that would suck? You bite into like a big juicy burger, chew it into mush, and then you have to just like spit it out. God, it's like a form of torture.
Yeah, especially when like after a couple days and you're just so hungry.
Jeez. Yeah. So I have one for you. The drinking man's diet. All right. Okay. This was introduced in the 60s. Ooh. And it is an alcohol-focused plan that includes, quote, manly foods like steak and fish, along with as much alcohol as desired. It's the drinking man's diet.
Steak, fish, and whiskey.
You could subsist off that.
Yeah, I'm not a big fish fan, but I could do the steak and whiskey. Actually, that's not true.
Fish isn't manly enough for you.
Can we do steak, gummy bears, and whiskey? Can we do that? Because I don't know. I could probably do that for a while.
No, I should probably click on this link here and read a little bit more about this and see if there's any other specifics. To me, it's just like, okay, so this is a classic example of how a fad diet sounds. I mean, for a drinker, this probably sounds like awesome. All right, I'm just going to, have my whiskey and steak and be good. Does that sound nutritionally complete to you? Do you think maybe you'd get bored after a time? Yeah. Does it sound like drinking alcohol instead of eating Does that sound a little bit far from healthy? I'm just throwing spitball in here, throwing out some
Yeah.
ideas.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's
Just things to think about. Like
which it baffles me that people think,
maybe a green vegetable once in a
I
while.
don't know, maybe a cracker. I don't know, like something satisfying. Um,
Anything. Yeah. Yeah.
let's see. It says what makes this more enjoyable than calorie counting is that most of the things you like best don't have to be counted at all. Steak and whiskey, they say that, Michael.
Mm.
Chicken and gin, ham, caviar, pate, foie gras, rum and roast pheasant, veal cutlets and vodka, frog legs and lobster claws, they all count as zero. There's your endorsement. Oh my God. Okay. I'm going to navigate away from this page because
Oh man.
I don't think that is helpful.
There was the cigarette diet in the 20s.
Yeah. Was that from Lucky or was
Yeah.
there any cigarette company?
So I think a lot of the cigarette companies, from what I read, but Lucky Strike launched the Reach for a Lucky instead of a Sweet campaign in 1925. Yeah. So,
It was in
which,
the 20s.
I mean, tobacco can be an appetite suppressant, right? And so I don't know if that's where this came from. But
Yeah.
yeah, just instead of, eating a cookie, smoke a cigarette. Like, duh, obviously it's the healthier choice.
So this is really funny. I'm gonna share this because this is from, I feel like this is from the 60s, maybe just based on the photo you can tell. I'm gonna share this. So if you guys want to see this, and maybe I'll share it on Instagram so you can see this old sugar advertisement. So you just said from like the Lucky's, the cigarette diet back in the 20s, I think, did
Hmm.
you say?
Yeah.
So then this is evidence that maybe, 20, 30, 40 years later, sugar was actually promoted as a fad diet. And this advertisement, it says in the corner, diet hint, have a soft drink before your main meal. Sugar just might be the willpower you need to curb your appetite. Wild, right? So
That's
that's
wild.
that's a sugar one.
Okay, I
And
want to say
then
something about. Can I say something about this real quick?
yeah.
Or are you shifting gears? Or are you still talking sugar?
No, I was going to share another sugar advert. Do you want
Okay,
me
go
to?
ahead. No, go ahead. I'll come back to it.
Okay. I'll go to this next one. Okay, so this is the quote, fat time of day. That's anytime you overeat. Sugar's instant energy can slip you past. And then the dad is, it's just like one of those really awkward photos around the dinner table back in,
Mhm.
I think this looks like the 60s
Yeah,
maybe.
probably early,
And
maybe.
he's looking at the camera really awkwardly, and in quotes it says, I think of sugar as extra willpower. At the fat
I
time of
like
day when you get really hungry and ready to
fat
eat.
time of day.
Like, what?
Or I like down at the bottom, sugar, only 18 calories per teaspoon, and it's all energy. Oh, you mean like any food?
Like calories? Anything with
Like
calories?
anything?
So ridiculous.
Okay, so I'm glad this ad said the same thing. So here's something I can think is important to point out for just fad diets in general. Both of those sugar ads talked about sugar providing the willpower,
Mm-hmm.
right? This is something we've talked about before. Another thing about fad diets is they put your success and make your success reliant on something external. Sugar's going to do it for you.
Mm-hmm.
Not eating sugar is going to do it for you. No carbs is going to do it for you. Not eating after this time. Like all your success is outsourced into this plan, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, those ads were real blatant about it. Like sugar will be your willpower,
Yeah.
okay? Versus like, and well, let me say this. I think that's a real common trend with most, if not all, fad diets is the external thing versus the reality is like this, it's all an inside job,
Yeah.
and you may utilize some of these external techniques because we do, but if the change isn't internal in your relationship with yourself and with food and how you view yourself, all that kind of stuff, like there's no external thing that can do it for you. And the great lie in this marketing is that it will. And if it didn't, well, it's your fault. You just need to try harder,
Mm-hmm.
you know?
Yep.
And this is never going to be the case.
Yeah.
It's your success is always going to be an inside job.
And if there's anything that we learned talking about set point theory,
Mm-hmm.
um, just recently, it's that it's not always about your discipline and willpower. You thinking that you're not strong enough, you're not doing it right, is false, because there are so many other things that are operating on this very complex, balance of why your body weighs, looks, or is the way it is.
Mm-hmm.
So, sure, there are things that we all have control over in our lives and that we can modify. And that's where, Michael and I are super excited to help people with those things and
Mm-hmm.
really take a look at like what can be done. And as you're saying, Michael, from inside, like how can my behavior, my thought process change? How can my approach to things change? But having these fad diets tell you that like this exact program will lead to this outcome is just, it's crazy.
Bananas.
It's bananas. And so, yeah, the whole drink a soda before your main meal. I mean, and now, so fast forward 50 years or whatever, and look at how vilified sugar is. Can you imagine if the next fad diet was all about sugar? It would, there's no effing way that would fly
No.
these days. So another example of how fad diets come and go, and what somebody believes is the end all be all of weight loss in one generation, completely, give it 10, 20 years and we'll see how people feel about that.
Right. Yeah. I got one more I want to share.
Okay.
Because this is a doozy. The Sleeping Beauty diet. Have you heard of this?
No.
So this is the idea that when you get hungry, you just pop a couple sleeping pills and you go to sleep so you don't eat.
Drug yourself. That sounds perfect.
Yeah. But only do it for a week or so, just to really get things started in the right direction.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, don't worry that you might have to work or take care of your children or drive somewhere. Just pop a sleeping pill. Whatever. It'll be fine.
Hey, that's a great point about fad diets is they kind of say that getting smaller is more important than that stuff. Like, right? Like it doesn't matter if this disrupts your family. It doesn't matter if it impacts like your kids' health or your relationship with them, or if you have the energy to even be a parent, like just get smaller. Everything will be better. That's, I mean, we just see like through these diets, how we wound up in this really just thick, tricky web of diet culture and how it's pervasive and everywhere is because this messaging has been going on for a century or more. It's super pervasive and it's really hard to get away from.
So what about cleanses or liquid-based diets, like the cabbage soup diet? Do you remember that one?
I remember hearing about it.
And then apple cider vinegar diet, which became popular in the 50s, it looks like.
But it's kind of, that one's resurged, right? I didn't realize it was popular in the 50s. I thought it was a newer thing.
But that's the funny thing about these fad diets. Yeah, they'll just come back. That sugar business I just shared, and we're all laughing at because we're like, sugar is like the villain right now. It'll come back. Just give it some time.
Yep. It'll look different. It'll be called something different. It'll be repackaged, but it'll be the same thing.
Yeah.
Yep. Just like low carb diets have been popular before, low fat diets have been popular before. It's all the same. I mean, Sleeping Beauty that's the same thing as intermittent fasting, right? Like just avoid it. Just don't eat for a while.
Except you just drug yourself so you can sleep, because otherwise you're laying in bed hungry and you can't sleep.
Yeah. But it's just a detail. It's the same concept.
Can we just all acknowledge that hunger is a normal human response? Please. And it's actually a survival mechanism. Like hunger is a good thing, you guys. Hunger is not something to be feared. And you know what the best hunger suppressant is? The best appetite suppressant? Food. Mm-hmm. Eat. Just eat some food.
Wait, what?
I know. So there's one called the last chance diet.
Oh.
Sounds very dun dun dun.
Okay,
this
another
is your
bullet
last
point.
chance.
Another bullet point. If it's super dramatic.
published in 1976, consisted of drinking a very low calorie liquid a few times per day. The main ingredient was a blend of pre-digested animal byproducts. Think hide, horns, and tendons. This quote, meat smoothie was taken off the market after several followers died. It's not funny that people died.
It's not funny that I was laughing at meat
smoothie.
Oh,
I know.
I like meat smoothie a whole lot.
But the tragedy in this whole thing is that somebody profited from this egregious and disgusting exploitation of people's emotional and psychological weaknesses or vulnerability. It's maddening. And this is why, we'll see fad diets that like the apple cider vinegar diet. Okay, well, it tastes terrible. It'll probably like break down your teeth enamel or something, maybe cause some acid reflux and whatever, and just upset your stomach a little bit. But really, there's not a lot of harm to that. But it still pisses me off to the same level, because when we see these fad diets and they hook people and they sell books and they get followings and they build this cult or this, group of people that are all about it, they can cause harm. And that's the Hippocratic oath, that anybody that's practicing health first do no harm. And the fad diet industry is really, if they're not crossing that line, they're tiptoeing around it, because at the very least, you're probably going to cause some kind of nutrient deficiency or some kind of psychological jacked up relationship with food.
And if they're tiptoeing around that line, I would say it's often not because of some moral code. It's because it's a smart business decision.
Yeah.
And that's the thing is that these fad diets, they lean right into with comfort and, just a real ease into potential physical harm and potential mental and emotional harm too. That's something that, doesn't get talked about a lot when we talk about like the dangers of these things. It's like, listen, you're damaging your perception of yourself. You're damaging your relationship with yourself. You're damaging your relationship with food, which you're going to have to eat for the rest of your life every single day. Right. Like and then not only this, but we're passing this on to people we're around and our kids. And like, it goes way beyond the physical implications. And I would say it's even in a lot of cases more severe in the mental and emotional aspects, because it just screws us up and we don't have any ability to see things for what they really are. We stay in this position of desperation where I just got to get the magic thing. I got to get that. We have zero belief in ourselves because we're relying on this external thing, right? And certainly we're not capable of doing it ourselves because that's what everybody is telling me. And it's just this disaster. And it's no wonder that people just feel awful about themselves. It really is this abusive relationship with these fitness and diet industries. It is horribly abusive. And we don't see it and recognize it as that.
And it's a joy suck. I mean, can we just acknowledge that food is pleasurable? It's pleasurable to eat food. So if you're, manipulating this aspect of life in a very specific way that is taking the joy out of your daily life, you might think that, oh, I can do this for a certain amount of time, or I can convince myself that this is okay and that I enjoy this. But really, I mean, be honest with yourself. How is this serving me? Is this truly helping? Are there things that I'm missing out on in life? Life is short. We hear that it's very, I know that that's thrown about, but it truly is. Like if you had a limited amount of time left, would you want to spend it eating cabbage soup?
Right.
With the promise of, you're going to have this very slim Hollywood worthy body.
Right.
Yeah. So,
and it's short, but it's also long. You know what I mean? And that we've got to be able to do this stuff for the rest of your life. And if you can't, I mean, I don't know what are you doing?
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know?
What's the point?
Yeah.
Um, we have one more really good one. We can't end the podcast without acknowledging
Okay.
Tapeworm Diet. And this one, so I'm looking at an ad from back in, so this says in the 1900s. So
Yeah.
I have this ad that, in fact, I'm going to share my screen and show this one because it's pretty ridiculous. So it says all over it, eat, 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 and always stay thin. Fat is the enemy that is shortening your life. How? With sanitized tapeworms.
Oh, they sanitized them. Okay.
God, they're easy to swallow.
Yeah. They're friends for a fair form. No
And
ill
you
effects.
send no money. Particulars mailed for free. No ill effects. Yeah.
No danger.
No danger.
I like no diets, no baths,
No
no
baths.
exercise. Like you don't,
No. Okay.
does like
You're
bathing
gonna
draw
be
the tapeworm out?
stinky and full of worms. And that sounds awesome. So
But
yeah,
you're
that's
gonna
one
feel
more.
great.
And just to emphasize that yes, we're kind of, some of these are really outlandish and crazy and we're laughing about them now, but take a look at some of the fad diets of today. And sure, we don't have anything quite this egregious going on, right? Well, we probably do, and I've just blocked it out.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think I saw like there was some guy years ago that was eating rotten meat. I mean, there's still things like that out there that we know are, again, causing harm. Like
Right.
they're dangerous. But the big take home here, I hope you guys got a little humor out of this and laughed a little bit with us. But in all seriousness, fad diets can be dangerous, physically, as we discussed, but also in a psychological and emotional way as well.
Yeah.
And think
Very.
about what you're really trying to achieve here. Are you just trying to, fit into those pants in your closet that you haven't been able to put on for years? Go buy some new pants. That's my first piece of advice.
Mm-hmm.
And then my second is to actually take a look at what behaviors, what do you want to see different in your day from a standpoint of health and positive behavior change and enjoyment, and really look at those pieces before you start going into some kind of restrictive, like crazy weight loss driven dietary practice.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely. And because I think the reality is like you were saying, Aaron, that in 30, 40, 50 years, we're going to look back at some of these things and be like, oh my God, can you believe we did that? Can you believe people were afraid to eat fruit? Remember when people were afraid to eat fruit? Like they were
Bananas and
terrified of bananas,
evil. What
you
do we,
know?
oh, our friend Leslie shared a fruit chart. It was like low sugar fruits or
Oh
something.
yeah.
What was it that she sent us?
Yeah, something like
And
that.
she had a fun little like F you and your fruit guilt chart. I'm gonna go eat a banana. And I just love it because I'm like, man, when we're vilifying fruit, like give me a break. Just like paleo vilified legumes. I'm like, you are kidding me?
Right?
It's wild.
It's crazy. And I think this is my last thing I want to say on this is that while we may look at some of our fad diets today and say, well, they're not as crazy as the tapeworm diet or, the great masticator or whatever, even if they're not as wild as that, the root of them is the same. And so they may not present as like so sensational or bananas, but the place they're coming from is the same. And that is banking on exploiting your insecurities and your fears and your worries and keeping you in a constant place of never making true progress so that you continue to spend your money. They're all charlatans. I don't care how they're doing it. I don't care if some are more wild than others. They're all charlatans. It's all the same. And they do not have your best interest, your health, physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, relational, whatever, at heart in any kind of way. They just don't.
Yep. So find someone that does. Find someone to help you that does.
Yep.
I can't help it. I just saw one more that I have to mention.
Okay, do it.
And this is from 2013. So this is recent, y'all. The cotton ball diet.
What?
You consume up to 5 cotton balls at a time, and it keeps you full and you'll lose
Oh my
weight.
God.
Never mind the bowel obstruction that results from this madness. Okay, I'm done. The diet faded away, clearly.
Oh my God. I took a drink of coffee right as you said that. I'm not kidding you. We almost had a legit spit take. Like I was like, well, keep it in.
Cotton
Eat
ball
cotton
diet.
balls.
Man, you guys. All right.
Wow.
Um,
Yeah. Okay.
came. So meaning in the
In the
mundane.
mundane.
Um,
You got one? You want to
mine
go?
was last week. Friday morning, Matt and I went for a mountain bike ride. And it was one of those rare mornings where neither of us had to be at work until a little bit later in the morning. And so
Mhm.
went out for a little ride and we decided to hit the coffee shop on the way home. And it's our standard kind of loop that we do. We have this, one kind of circuit that we do. It's like 11 miles from our house that we call the loop. So we just did
Mhm.
our loop and we're descending down and we're kind of headed back down into the lower trails. And I just had this moment, following Matt down this descent, just one of those very content and grateful like moments in time that you're just like, oh my gosh, I love our life. I love our
Yeah.
ability to have access to this space. And I love that I have a partner that enjoys it as much as I do, and that we can just go do this ordinary thing. And it feels so special because
Yeah.
it's an ordinary thing that we don't always get to do. Um, yeah, just one of
That's
those
awesome.
like really cool, clarifying kinds of moments that
Love it.
you feel like joyful and grateful through and through.
Hmm.
So that was
I
mine.
love that. That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
It's always, I just love when you become kind of like, what's the word? Like you have a new, or what's the word? Like a renewed awareness of the
Mm-hmm.
space you're always in, right? Like, oh
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I love it here. You get so
Mm-hmm.
used to it, you kind of forget because you see it all the time. But when something happens to kind of like renew your awareness, man, what a gift that is. That's awesome.
Yep.
Nice.
Yep.
So for me, mine was just 2 or 3 nights ago, we had a wicked thunderstorm, like crazy. It was
Ooh, I love it.
awesome. And we have lots of thunderstorms and, we just kind of stay inside and ride it out. And it seems like they always happen when the girls are going to sleep. And so they can't go to sleep. And Sophie's terrified of them. And
Yeah.
anyway, I don't know if there's something to that, but it just seems like they're always like right in that later evening, when they start to go. But around, I don't know, 10:30 or so, I just went out in my front yard and just to watch it. And it was the kind where like, I mean, it was just like flash, 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 just constant, right? Like
Yeah,
lighting
I
up the
love
whole
it.
sky, just constant strikes of lightning all around. And then that kind of thunder that sounds like it's just like ripping open the sky. And it was really cool because there were, but Kathleen even said this too. She's like, the thunder sounds really strange. Like it would kind of like, it would ripple, but it would like kind of skip. Like there were little gaps in between. It was
Hmm.
like,
Huh.
and then it would stop. It just felt like it sucked all the sound with it. It would like get real
Oh,
quiet
wow.
and then it would come back again. And it was just this really cool experience of just like, man, Mother Nature is a force and it is powerful and dangerous and
Mm-hmm.
beautiful. And I don't know, I stood out there for, I don't know, 5-10 minutes, just enjoying these. We've had so many thunderstorms this summer, but I've never really gone out and enjoyed one. And so it was just this nice little time
Uh,
of enjoying the power of Mother Nature. Yeah.
I love thunderstorms. We haven't had
Mhm.
a good thunderstorm here for a long time, but yeah, I'm with you. I love that kind of being in awe of nature and
Yeah.
those times when, whether it's like a blazing sunset or sunrise or
Yeah.
standing on the edge of the ocean and watching this happen or,
Yeah.
just I mean, taking a look around at this forest of trees and understanding that they're all connected somehow in
Mhm.
this ecosystem. I love those moments in
Yeah.
nature. Nature
Yep.
is my church for sure.
Yep. Reminds you kind of how small you are, but how connected
Yeah.
you are too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
Okay. Well, thanks. This was
Yeah.
fun. This
Thanks,
was
everybody.
a good one. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. This was, it was fun.
All right. Let us know what you think. And if you have any suggestions for topics, just hit us up at middleish@gmail.com or middleish_podcast on Instagram.
Yep. And quick reminder, if like we said, if you are interested in being a sponsor, shoot us an email too. And we'd love to talk with you about that. So thanks, everybody.
Thanks.